Ladies and gents, we are back for another edition of the Go Long Show here at Go Long, golongtd.com, powered by you, our readers, our listeners. We cannot thank you enough for all of your patronage. And of course, when it comes to the beverages of choice, we go to our friends at Fatty Beer Company here in Western New York, Orchard Park, Hamburg, Tonawanda, Kenmore. They're all over the place. Downtown, of course. We were doing a lot of these podcasts live at the Fatty establishments, and it was a lot of fun. Honestly, selfishly, it was a lot of fun because we got to hang out in person. But hey, we have to listen to our loyal Go Long subscribers and podcast subscribers, and they said they prefer this setting, Jim, because it sounds clearer. We have new mics. It's a better setup. So I think that's what we're going to keep doing. And you know what? We'll just get together in person on our own time.
I think that was
How
well
you doing,
said,
man?
Tyler. Well said. It was very fun at Fatty Beer. It always is a good time there, but it does sound a little bit better. So yes, and good to see you again. What's been happening? How the Bills doing?
Life is good. We're going to get into the Bills. That's going to be the theme of this podcast, a little state of the Bills union of sorts into week 7 of this pro football season. But, life's good. I was down in Houston, Texas this past week trying to get a read on a lot of things. And we're going to have more on the Texans that go along over the coming weeks. But the quarterbacks, the rookie quarterbacks, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, it's just so fascinating to both of us. And Josh Lucas, he kind of got me thinking about this story as well and offered just amazing insight into all 3 quarterbacks for that story. But as you know, Jim, I mean, when you pick a quarterback, it's going to go one of 2 directions, right? Promotions and immortality and Super Bowl championships and parades and legacies forever, or potentially pink slips. And I love your perspective, Josh's perspective, as you've been in that room, right? You studied Patrick Mahomes, who may go down as the greatest player of all time when it's all said and done. It's a possibility. I'm just so fortunate to be able to talk about football, talk about quarterbacks with you both. But yeah, spending time down in Houston, sitting down with Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator, plucked from the Shanahan tree. That this guy's going to be a head coach one day. Unbelievably bright. You just get a sense talking to somebody like Bobby Slowick. Press Taylor's another one, OC with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'd say, like Dan Pitcher, quarterbacks coach with the Cincinnati Bengals. Some of these coaches, they just get it, right? It's not like they're not just calling a play and saying, all right, players, run the play. Like there's answers baked into these plays. There's actual game planning. There's nuance. There's as Press Taylor said, getting up at 6:15, staying up till 10:30 to just try to find something to give your guys a clue, a tell in the moment that they can use, like Trevor Lawrence used against the Buffalo Bills. Micah Hyde 1-on-1 with Calvin Ridley, game on the line, send him deep. I just thought it'd be good to do a deep dive on those rookie quarterbacks to kind of see what direction it's going to go. Because when you turn in that card to Roger Goodell, that's only the start. Learned a lot on CJ Stroud, learned a hell of a lot on Bryce Young, talking to some sources out there with the Carolina Panthers. As they told us, there's people in the organization quite disturbed by Frank Reich's offense, and it is exactly the other end of the spectrum. Simplicity, calling a play, running the play, not really maximizing what Bryce Young does best, while also asking him to set all the protections, call all the hots, right? They're throwing. It's just so counterproductive with what they've been doing with Bryce Young when, hell, you mortgage so much for him. And then there's Anthony Richardson, right? I mean, this is a freak show. This is something we maybe have never seen at the position, but there's a fine line there on how much do you just let him go. He exited 3 games with injuries, and now he's going to have season-ending shoulder surgery. So definitely check this story out. Was down there for that. As always, though, Jim, whenever we take a trip at Go Long, there's going to be some travel stories. And I need to ask you a very, very important question. So I don't really, I like renting a car because you're in control. So if I know I'm going to be like, when we went to Florida, did a bunch of Jaguar stuff and drove across the state to Tampa, so you need a car. But I knew my hotel in Houston was near NRG Stadium, formerly Reliant Stadium, and I could just walk there, get a little exercise in. So I did lifts. If I had to go beyond that walk to get lunch or work at a Starbucks, just doing the lifts. Then of course there's the lift that you take to the airport. So had two very, very unfortunate lift situations. One, from Starbucks to the hotel. So it was just like a $5 lift. It was very, very abbreviated, short. I'm going to throw what is the worst situation to you? Is it A, that short trip where the Lyft driver, I think his name was Jaskin with a J, I believe, clearly just let one rip, like right before I got into the Lyft. I mean, it was awful.
You can stop.
Violent.
You're gonna have you're gonna have to come with a lot more to beat that. That's unacceptable for me. Go ahead.
I mean, it was like cover up your nose instantly. That kind of gas. It was rough.
I mean,
And he knew it. He kind of gave me a look like, oh shit. Like he just hold it in, but he didn't. It was bad, but it was a short trip, right? It's just like we're talking 2.5 miles, right? So, but it was pretty rough. He didn't get a tip. I'll just say that. When you just, rip a fart right before you pick someone up in a lift, you're not going to get a tip. Or the 25-minute lift from the hotel to Hobby Airport. Now, okay, so it's longer. Also, it was a 3:30 a.m. lift to catch my flight, super early. Pre-coffee, so there's no coffee at the Spring Hill Suites. So, you're kind of like in that ornery, groggy fog pre-coffee anyways, and you're staring down the barrel of a TSA wait and all the nonsense you have to put up at the airport with the imbeciles at the gate. And it's just, there's going to be a line for the coffee at the airport. So there's a lot of, as Sammy Watkins said, when you wake up in the morning, there's like almost a demonic feeling inside you. There's some kind of presence that you got to shake off. You feel that in the morning at 3:30 pre-coffee. So you get into that lift, it's longer, and you're feeling that way. And she couldn't have been nicer. I'll say that. Grandmother, probably in her 70s, just doing her deed, just 5-star ratings across the board. But you're in this fog. You don't really feel like talking. You haven't had your coffee yet. And she's literally rifling off the information on all of her surgeries that she's had over the past 5 years, about 4 or 5 surgeries with meticulous detail, right? Just a lot of information, a lot of conversation coming at you 100 miles an hour. And it's hard to keep up. I'm a friendly person. I like talking to people. It's my job, but that was kind of rough in its own way. So would you prefer the short trip with the stench? I guess that's the way to frame the question. Which would you prefer? The short trip with the stench or the long trip with all the detail about all the surgeries? So it's a mentally exhausting conversation to have at that time of the day.
I have an amazing skill to tune people out. So I would have no issue with the long ride and the surgery list, and I'm okay with that. We'll find a way to get through that. I'm good on the other one. That's wrong. It's unacceptable. And Tyler, I'm a former Uber Lyft driver. I did it I did this after the Bills, after we were let go. And as you're looking for jobs and figuring things out in life, down in Charleston, South Carolina, where it's beautiful, it's year-round tourism. So Uber Lyft is a pretty good job down there. So I always wanted to try it. And because I do like driving and I love Charleston, I know a lot about it. So I thought I had a great time with it. And I'm pretty proud of my ratings. I'm documented. I have documented ratings on Uber and Lyft 5.0. Thank you. But I will say this, Tyler. I do think people, as you say, you get into conversations and people would ask sometimes, what did you used to do? Or do you do this full time? I said, no, I used to work in the NFL. And that's when I think sometimes on some of those rides, I would tell some stories, just like on the pod, possibly. I think people would get out of those cars and think that guy is on something. That there is no way that we should not have been listening. There is no way that guy worked in the NFL. What's he doing down here on Folly Beach, South Carolina, driving around with a Super Bowl ring? With
the That's incredible. I mean, you did probably make out pretty damn good in Charleston.
Tyler, I will always tell you, I always feel safe knowing that Uber and Lyft are there for me if things don't work out professionally.
I like it. The thing is, there's social cues, right? So you're driving the Lyft and the Uber, so you would pick up on these social cues, I'd imagine. But with the only thing I'll add, and I think I'm with you, I would prefer the long drive because she was a nice woman. It's hard for
You're
me
getting
to
a good
think ill of her.
Couple surgeries, I'm good.
Yeah, but they were like, I should say, they were very like minor surgeries, almost like cosmetic. Like she admitted I didn't even really need these kind of surgeries.
Yeah.
But she had insurance and she just kind of just wanted to have them, I suppose, to maybe. But I was giving her the conversation fillers, right? Like yeah, oh my God, that's crazy. It was a cycle
The
of
usuals.
those phrases. And she wasn't really picking up on it. She wasn't picking up on the fact that I was a zombie. She took that as like I'm intimately engaged. But I'd imagine you would kind of know like this person I'm picking up, like they want to have a conversation, or they just want to put their head against the window and space out.
No, you do. You have to read the customer. But I can tell you, Tyler, it's true though. If you really want to hurt, like the not tipping thing is just, you did the right thing there. Like that's fine not to tip on that. But if you give a 4-star, that hurts. Like,
ooh, I've never done that.
That's what I'm saying. Like that hurts. Like that can hurt your ratings worse because you do get, eventually I think there is a rating, system and all that. But I know as a driver, or as a rider, I should say, we used to play a game in Buffalo in the office, and I would call it in everybody and have everybody pull out their phones, and everybody had to pull out their Uber rating, and whoever had the worst rating had to buy whatever pizza that night or whatever, something, a group thing. Lowest rating, so I didn't realize, but I had like a 4.85, I think, as a rider. I had a bad rookie year, Tyler. I feel like when Uber first came out, I think I was canceling rides accidentally. I didn't know. I think I was messing up some things. I didn't purposely try it, but apparently I wasn't getting good ratings as a rider. And that since has climbed, and I take pride in it. So
you got me thinking here now myself. I'm at.
Go ahead, check it out.
I'm not perfect, so maybe the joke's on me, right?
Well, hey, two sides to every story.
I can't. I'm illiterate with this. I think I'm like 4.9. So at some point I must have pissed somebody up. All right. Anyway. So we can talk about this all, or we can talk a little football.
That was our travel. Yeah, that was our travel segment.
But it was fun. It was productive. We had the quarterback story. I also chatted with Nico Collins, wide receiver, who's a rising star. He's been incredible so far this season. So I think you'll really enjoy his story. I chatted with Jerry Hughes, somebody that you know well. He's down with the Texans, so
all time
column on him.
All time, one of my all-time favorites being around him. They have made such improvements. DeMeco Ryans. It's amazing when a team buys into a coach, and let's not kid ourselves, and the quarterback is playing like an NFL starter. This is what happens. Now you're seeing. We could talk about this with a lot of teams. Because I watched Bryce Young this week. I just graded him. So I was excited. I wanted to see how he looked today. And Tyler, he still looks the same to me. He didn't grade very well. Like they did some better things with him. I know Josh said it. Josh Lucas said it on the pod about the size. I guess what I'm confused about with the whole size, and he does. He plays small. And I didn't study him at Alabama, but that was talked about up the whole draft. Like, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is that can't be coming up right now. I think we're a little more advanced to say he's a little smaller than we think. I'm not buying that. As far as I'm saying from Carolina, he does play small, and he probably played small at Alabama. Maybe you ignored it. I just don't think that can be the out for Al. I don't, and I know they changed up the play calling. It did look better. It looked it looked functional. But then again, we're going to get into this. They were going against a defense who's not very good. So Miami. So I want to make sure we, let's not get. But you'd like to see Bryce Young have a little more. But they did have some success early. But you'd like to see more sustained success. Put up some yards. You're getting blown out. Where are the chunk plays? Give me some. There's always those, those once you're getting blown out, you get back in the game with some big plays. They fight for everything right now. To follow up on the Stroud, I read all that. It was fun talking about and seeing his progression with Josh Lucas as well, and just seeing Stroud just throwing darts out there like we talked about. And then
Didn't Josh
Richardson,
just nail it too? Man, his analysis is fantastic.
on Stroud was so good. I just love the way he's throwing the football. He sees everything. He's so natural throwing the ball. And then Richardson, we talked about it. I was excited to see more of him, how they were going to use him. But it goes back to it's hard to invest that type of pick on a quarterback whose number one thing is running. And you better find a way to mix in running, but you can't make that his number one way for your offense to be good. That's all I'm going to say about it. Like, I feel bad. I was really excited to see him develop this year because he was showing signs of – the first thing he showed was no fear.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's Cam Turner. So he's the Indianapolis Colts quarterbacks coach. Chatted with him for a while for the story, and you really get the sense. I mean, they are ecstatic.
You have to
with
be.
What Anthony Richardson could become. And I think that it's coming from a place of they know he's going to work. He is going to spend the necessary time in the offseason to improve his accuracy, to become more of a pocket passer, but they also don't want to take away what makes him special, right? They'll be the designed runs. They're going to let him just go.
It's the fine line. And the more film you watch, and the more just forget film, just football in general, the more games you watch, just pay attention to design quarterback runs versus just the off-the-cuff quarterback making a play in the backyard. And I swear, just let those guys do their thing. The design runs, I cringe. Most of the time when there's a design run, I cringe.
Really?
Unless it's a quarterback draw, because usually that's designed because you caught them in a defense, so you got something good.
And Bryce Young, too. Yeah, it's an issue, his size. I think that Carolina, they're – so the person I talked to in the organization, I'll just say he's higher up, and they're confident that Bryce Young is going to be fine. Okay, they know he's short, but they say he's even reading the field fine as is right now, going through his progressions. But as Josh Lucas pointed out, okay, there's two parts to this. There's that, maybe you can see the field fine, but also when there's pressure, like, are you Lamar Jackson who can just turn into this electrifying, juking Barry Sanders creature to evade the rush? Are you Josh Allen, Ben Roethlisberger, just kind of throwing them off, shucking guys away? What's like he's slithery, and he was able to get away from pressure at Alabama, but that's a different defensive lineman that you're facing in college versus what you're facing in the pros. I mean, these D linemen are physical specimens across the board.
Defense in general, Tyler. I learned it quick with Reggie Bush in New Orleans when we drafted him.
Perfect example.
That's right? When I said. That's when I was still young enough in the NFL. I'm sure the veteran scouts in the NFL probably had concerns that Reggie wasn't gonna, it doesn't necessarily just translate like that. But that was my first, like, man, he has to work hard to gain extra yards. Like, even Reggie has to be special to gain 10 yards, and make a guy miss. It's that hard. So, yeah. But Bryce Young's arm that's one thing I can't right now for me that I'm bothered with is the arm strength. Balls are
Is that
dying.
right? The arm strength. See,
It's
that's an element to his game that I didn't
I
really get into.
right. I see balls dying. You're seeing guys laying out for Adam Thielen's laying out for 8-yard out cuts. I mean, balls aren't, you know what I'm saying? They're fighting for yards right now. And that might just be a part of everything's going wrong. And it's why I tell you, I really try not to be too hard on rookies. I want to see the positives. Like, I like what I saw from Richardson. I love what I'm seeing from Stroud. I want to see it from Bryce Young. I'm not seeing arm strength. He just looks like a guy trying to get through a game right now and compete. He's fighting right now. Jordan Love, too. Jordan Love, you guys have talked. I don't want to talk about him anymore, but yeah, same deal. I'm not judging him all this year. I mean, we see the good. They have to keep building. They're doing some good things on offense. They're not that far behind. He's going to have to make plays. They all do. They all have to get better.
I think if you're Carolina too, like there's a hypothetical here where I can see Bryce Young being a top 12 quarterback in
No
2024.
question. I mean, they had
He can get there, but there's a lot of steps. Like they need to get Austin Corbett back at guard. They're really high on him. They need Zavala, the rookie 4th-round pick, to be a player. They need to sign another interior lineman, like Josh Lucas said. Those Drew Brees teams that you guys were scouts for, all started with the guards, the depth at pocket, right? If you've got a pocket, then you don't have to worry about shutting guys off.
The difference that I noticed with Bryce Young, and when I watch Purdy is more like Breeze than Bryce Young is like Breeze, as far as similar sizes. But what I'm watching is what Purdy's doing is fun. Like he's throwing guys open. Like that is a skill that when you see that, that's what Breeze used to do. When you're throwing guys open, that's masterful, I think. And Bryce Young,
that's what CJ Stroud's doing too.
No question, Stroud's doing it. So that's when you see, that's to me is when you see guys they're getting it like early, and they're talented. And Purdy seems plenty talented, by the way. Like I'm not a believer anymore. I'm over all the. I've seen enough to know
Same.
Yeah, over it. They should have beat Cleveland. Tyler, we're making a big deal about that game. They literally missed a field goal. Right.
Totally. And Purdy came alive that last drive, right? Like he had 9 completions up to that point, and then he put them in position to win the game.
Right. Northeast weather, Midwest weather, whatever Cleveland is. And there's Purdy with everybody, doesn't have an arm, blah, blah, blah. He's fine. That team is so locked and loaded. It's insane how good they are.
All in on Brock Purdy. I agree. And obviously I've been skeptical, cynical of how Kyle Shanahan has kind of navigated the quarterback position, but you can see it. For what he wants to do schematically, it matches up with Brock Purdy's strength as a decision maker.
It's funny to me to think, I don't know. There's a lot funny about that in the whole Purdy thing. But I looked at his college stats at Iowa State compared to Drew Brees' college stats at Purdue. And it was similar where they had the 4-year careers, the crazy numbers. Purdy's were better, but times have changed. But saying it just made me think that's Brees. Brees is a good athlete too. Like he could move around in the pocket. I mean, and Purdy does that too.
And he didn't need the elite tackles because he just wanted to step up into the pocket. Right?
Because they know where they're going with the ball, Tyler. They know where they're going with the ball. Mm-hmm. They know where they know how much time they need to get that ball.
I think Bryce Young knows where he's going too, so that would give you a little hope.
Yes, I wouldn't comment on that yet. They're fighting. Like I hate for a rookie now they're switching play callers. You know what I mean? It's like I don't like any of that for them for Bryce Young.
Pressure's on in Carolina. David Tepper has made that quite clear. Jobs are on the line.
Well, he
one final note on the Texans, though, because we got to get into the Bills, too.
Real quick.
I tell you what, standing in that Texans locker room and looking around, Jim, all offseason, we spent a lot of time talking about a lot of teams and a lot of players. I don't even know if the Houston Texans came up at all, so shame on us. But you look around this room, veterans, guys who've won games, Sheldon Rankins, Robert Woods, Shaquille Griffin, Denzel Perriman, Devin Singletary, Dalton Schultz.
All tough.
Like they've got vets. They were active in free agency. Like, they signed players. Good bang for the buck too, across the board. Jerry Hughes, right? I mean, and then they were aggressive on draft day. CJ Stroud at number 2, Will Anderson at number 3. By the way, Will Anderson looks like a player. I don't care what the sack total is. He is getting pressure.
Right.
Press Taylor made a point to point him out as well. Like this guy's legit.
Showing up.
I think that the Texans are a team we're going to be talking about this point forward. They're good. So, all right, Buffalo Bills. Okay. 2 ways to look at this, Jim. They're 4-2. They're 4-2. They won. I know where you're going.
I'm going front office view. I'm coming hard front office view on this one. Go ahead.
You're coming at it. We texted a little bit, like, so I'm jumping the gun, but it's get your win, get out, make no apologies. And to an extent, I'm there with you. I am. I even wrote this in the column on Monday. Like, make no apologies. It's hard to win in the NFL. It just is. Like, there's a reason that after one of his players, Taron Johnson, probably held Darren Waller on that last play, that Sean McDermott is still pointing to God emphatically and thanking the Lord above for the victory. Because the Lord above is deciding who wins and loses football games. But there's a reason he's that emotional, because it's hard to win. It's hard to win. Nobody's good, like weeks, years from now, nobody's gonna look back and be like, well, actually, Tyrod Taylor checked to a run the last play of the first half, and they missed those 3 points, and then those 3 points could have come in handy down the road. Or actually, Jalen Hyatt caught a 43-yarder in the first half, and that was a bogus illegal man downfield penalty on Evan Neal. And actually, Bobby Okereke, he gently touched Josh Allen. It really wasn't roughing the pass, like unnecessary roughness, whatever they call. Like, nobody's gonna remember any of that, or the Taron Johnson thing on Darren Waller. It's gonna be that they won. So I get it. I guess I'll touch on my point, and then we'll let you talk, because you're the expert here. You actually have been in front offices. Your opinion matters more. I'll just say, like, covering the Packers and then covering the NFL and seeing teams, like, yes, it's a long season. All teams have ups and downs. All teams have to kind of figure themselves out over time. I'm a little concerned for the Buffalo Bills right now. I'm a little concerned because of the injuries. Matt Milano, Tre'Davious White, DaQuan Jones. Like, you're talking a dude at each level of your defense that you rely on. Run defense. You need that D tackle eating up blockers. And he was maybe the most underrated player on the whole defense, DaQuan Jones. Matt Milano's a star. I mean, all pro last year, part of your last draft class with the Buffalo Bills. And Tre'Davious White was starting to find himself again. And you saw, like, they are one injury away from disaster at cornerback, because Dane Jackson's out, Kyer Elam's in. You sure wish your first-round pick could play a lot better than that. He might as well have a big old bullseye on his jersey. So injuries, a huge part of it. Offensive identity. It took them a whole half of football to realize they're playing a New York Giants team that isn't as good as them. You're disjointed with your passing game. It's Allen and Diggs and not much else. Just run the ball. James Cook, Latavius Murray, just bully ball. Just run it down the field. And so that's where I'm at with this team. Like, there's one loyal listener, subscriber, reader. I'm not going to use his name because I really like this guy a lot, and we were DMing a little bit on X, and because he was ripping me for being too hard on the team, for saying that the Buffalo Bills are lost in the woods. And I was like, oh man, this he's a logical reader. Like, he doesn't have a broken brain and just see criticism and say, oh, he's a hater, he's biased. Like, no, he's a thinker. So we exchanged some messages. I told him, like, yeah, they're lost in the woods, but like, the way you get out, there is a way out of the woods. Like, it's mid-October. This is when you kind of work through stuff. And what the Bills are working through right now with their passing game, It's ugly. They don't really know how to use Dalton Kincaid. I love Gabe Davis, but they're kind of hot and cold with him. Dawson Knox, you paid him all that money. Does he have 100 yards on the season? I don't even know. Trent Sherfield, Deontay Hardy are Christmas ornaments on the tree. You barely use them. Run the ball. That's my thing. Just right now, that's something that works. James Cook is averaging almost 5 yards a carry. Latavius Murray found the fountain of youth. Just run the ball. And let Josh Allen be Josh Allen at crunch time like he was. The second half was beautiful, right? They ran it down their throat. Josh Allen made the throw to Quentin Morris. A throw, by the way, that I'm sure the coaches in front office, that's what they told him not to do all offseason, like to be careful, and maybe they were talking about his running and all that. But it is a throw that probably drives coaches insane. That's what Josh Allen does. And I think that's a formula to get you through, by the way, a softer portion of your schedule here. So, yeah, I think they should be concerned. I think that these are issues that they're dealing with, but I think that there's a way out. Like, because guess what? When you're running the ball well now, if that becomes a real part of your offensive identity and you can do different things as an offense. I loved Press Taylor's quote when we were chatting. He's like, it's like the Bruce Lee, be water. Like, be fluid. Be able to do different things. The Chiefs can do different things. They just hand it to Isaiah Pacheco when they have to. Patrick Mahomes is playing on one good leg last year in the playoffs. The Bills haven't had that element. They're a team that's built to win in a dome. If every playoff game was in a dome, they'd probably love that. But they need to find a running game for that time of year. And you can't just snap your fingers in January and find it. Right? When the Cincinnati Bengals are punching you in the mouth, they couldn't just magically find a running game. Like, it has to kind of happen this part of the season in the middle of October against the Giants and against the Patriots and the Bucks. What a perfect time to find your running game. So that's the thing. I'm not saying they need to dial the clock back to 1995 and get that Thurman Thomas, Derek Holmes, Tim Tyndale rotation going. I'm just saying, like, it helps when you can run the football, and this is the time to do it. Teams are begging you to. It's the answer to winning. So that's the solution. That's your GPS to get out of the woods. All right. I will shut the hell up. Let's let Jim Monas take over here.
No, I like where you're going with that because you touched on something I want to bring up. I'm not concerned about the offense at all. I almost don't even want to talk about it. Everything you brought up is valid, but that's all to me is what is part of the process, what's going on inside the building in every organization right now. These are the dog days. This is the fight. You're in it right now where you're realizing things you need to improve on. You're realizing where you may have misjudged personnel. Hey, we signed these guys. We're not getting use out of them. Why not? Is it time to start working? This is when you work all this out, Tyler. And I think the personnel is good on that side of the ball to figure it out. Like, as far as they don't have holes personnel-wise on the offense. It's off the charts right now where they're ranked in every category. They're middle of the pack. They're 16th in rushing yards per game. That's how they play right now. And I agree with you. You can't turn that on. But I'm going to give that time. I'm not worried about the offense. I have concerns on the defense. And I think you touched on the injuries for sure. We talked about this. The goal for the Bills this season is get to the playoffs healthy. I think health is more important than home field. It's not even close right now. Health is everything. And once again, every team is battling that as well. But look at this with the Bills this year. Rushing yards a game on defense, they are 25th right now in the NFL. Now, if they were giving up what they gave up last year per game, it would be ranked 15th, middle of the pack. So it's not fatal flaw. This year, they're giving up serious yards on rushing the ball. Third down percentage, they're ranked 23rd on defense. They're not getting off the field on third downs. Yards per play, 22nd on defense. This is not normal for them. What's crazy is they're fourth in points per play on defense, which is the number one stat for me on defense. That is how I remember Jim Johnson in Philadelphia talking about defense. He is okay with giving up yards. We're not giving up points. And when I look at this defense right now in those rankings, that third down defense and running game, that's a concern. How do you battle that with the injuries they have? And then you look at the AFC, number one rushing team in the NFL, the Miami Dolphins. Well, Bills handled them. But we know one thing. There's 2 more games coming with Miami. And they're going to run the ball against Buffalo in those games coming up. Because that rank, when they see Buffalo's 25th against the run and they're number 1, they're going to get a good dose of the run. Cleveland Browns, 4th ranked rushing offense. Baltimore Ravens, 5th ranked rushing offense. Kansas City Chiefs, 11th ranked offense. How are the Bills going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs if they're the 11th ranked offense? Like, it's the Bills and Chiefs, it's this constant, it's every year battle. I'm just seeing that right now is where they need to really work on. Those are where we're going to pay attention to see if they can improve in those areas, because I don't think that's the Bills defense that Sean wants, giving up that type of running, those types of yards. That's too low in comparison to where they want to be, I would think.
Fantastic breakdown. It's concerning because where are the solutions, right? Like, how do you fix it? How do you get better defensively?
Well, let me just tell you where they are. That was the concern. Now here's the number 1. They're number 1 in sack percentage. They're getting after the quarterback. It's the ultimate thing in football. Nothing else matters. I'm to the point, Tyler. I'm telling you, you can't draft enough pass rushers. Mm-hmm. You can't. Even if you give up the run, which I get. I mean, you have to balance it. Can't be fatal flaw. But you have to get to these quarterbacks or it's over. Like, you can't stop anybody. And I just feel like that's the only way to do it.
And that's a great point on Miami, because I feel like they just mashed Miami's offensive line. Like, they just got after them, just dominated those one-on-one matchups, and
what if I told
mucked up everything Mike McDaniel was trying to do with the motions, with the disguising, with the window dressing. Like, none of that stuff mattered because they're getting it to it. Like, so the next time they play, the Dolphins are, to your point, they're going to run the ball. Like, they're going to come out with Mostert. They're going to come out with Achane, whoever's back there, and
whoever.
Try to beat them with the run.
And it won't just be Miami, but that's the team. Obviously, the Bills and the Chiefs can run the ball. So those are the teams that the Bills know they're going to be battling to get to that championship.
What do you offensively think? What's interesting to me, though, Jim, it's like with the running game, it's just they've had such a peculiar relationship with the run. It's so strange because I give general manager Brandon Beane credit here. His picks on both sides of the ball, really, a lot of them are starting to look pretty damn good.
They're playing, Tyler. They're playing.
Zach Moss is what, second in the NFL in rushing? Devin Singletary's a player. I don't really think he was a problem for the Bills.
It's strange that they couldn't. It's strange.
Cook is a second-round pick, averaging 5 a carry.
Yeah. I mean, Moss and Singletary
they
had fumbling concerns, but with Buffalo, both of them did, and that can drive you to another team. I mean, that can drive a team. Like, a team can get tired of that. That can be. I don't know. I'm just guessing because, to your point, you drafted those guys. You did right. You should reward yourself. I mean, I like the way Moss runs.
What's the feeling, Jim, in the front office? Like, so I love the dynamic, the front office and coaching staff on any team. So, because we kind of see it in Carolina they get Bryce Young, and then they're seeing how the coaches are using Bryce Young, and it's like, oh man, don't like this. But if you're Brandon Beane, if you're in that front office, right? Like Joe Shane was there. And you draft Wyatt Teller in the 6th round. He's one of the best guards in football, and he's given away to the Cleveland Browns. I'd imagine probably Beane is having conversations with the coaching staff, and a lot of this is kind of gut instinct more than like direct knowledge of the situation. But I'd imagine the coach is like, we can't work with this guy. Like, we can't do it. His personality, the way he approaches it, he's wired a little differently. Wyatt's the first to say, like, go back and read our story on it if you have a chance. Wyatt Teller's Why We Love Football. But Probably people in the front office are hearing that, and it's like, all right, guys, salvage what we can for him, and you move on from a guy like that. They move on from a guy like Zach Moss for Naeem Hines, who has the crazy jet ski incident. Who knows what he could have given the Bills this year? I think he would have been a factor. But it's got to be frustrating in a front office. So what's it like in that chair when you draft a guy, right, and then you see him do something for another team? It's got to be the worst.
It's funny you say that. I was talking to Mark Ross the other night, who's done the show, works for NFL Network, and used to work in the NFL for the Giants, Eagles. I started with him, and my very first draft as an area scout in the Northeast, as the Eagles Northeast area scout, we drafted Brian Westbrook. Now I'm saying that was, Mark talking, that was all Mark Ross and did an amazing job. I was happy to learn at that point. Like, that was the best college football player I think I still have ever seen. But in the 7th round of that draft, we took a defensive end named Raheem Brock. And I can remember we were about a week from training camp, and Mark called me and said, man, you're not going to believe this, but we weren't able to reach a deal with Raheem Brock, a 7th round pick. Joe Banner was the money guy at the time, and for some reason, I don't know what it was, they didn't want to take whatever the Eagles were offering. Raheem's camp didn't like, which I've never heard of with a 7th round selection. You can go ahead and look up his career after we get done with the pod, but about a 10-year career and just a tough, consistent Indianapolis Colt pass rusher. Played it from Philly, played at Temple, and we took him in the 7th round. And you ask what it's like, I'm still talking about it like it was yesterday. That might have been what? I don't even want to, 2002? Probably 2002 draft. Anyway. All right, so there's your question. And the other thing about that, it makes me not ever want to be in the NFL again. Those debates, the coaches and front office thing
it's real.
It's real. And if you, like we talk about, if you can get the structure right, it's a great thing, because man, when it's not a fun day to go to work.
What was Rex Ryan like in those conversations?
Rex was good, because I will say this with Rex, and we're the same way. Rex will admit when he'll admit when he's wrong, and he'll admit when he'll let you know when he's right. But that's a lot of guys. I thought Rex was a great evaluator. He had passion about it. He had his favorites we disagreed on. That the IK defensive end, the guy punched
IK Adam Polly. Yes.
I mean, I never thought we didn't really want him, but hey, that was a guy Rex knew would go to, had his back and would do everything he wanted on the defense. If that's going to help us win, hey, I'm all for it. But I never thought the guy could pass rush. I thought he was just a bowling ball, tough guy.
I'll never forget being at Pittsburgh pub, throwing a few beers back with Matt Fairburn, Mike Rodak, whoever was there for training camp. And we just, Rex and Doug Whaley, they were there. Like, it's not really a big bar. It's like the only, sports bar in Pittsburgh training camp. But they were having a conversation like off to the side that night in training camp. And we were sitting there thinking, like, something's going down here. The Bills are doing something. And it was the next morning. It was announced, Ican and Polly, fresh off socking Geno Smith in the jaw, is going to become a Buffalo Bill. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, nobody's record is perfect. There's going to be hits. There's going to be misses.
Draft picks and all that. That's every team, every player on every roster. There's somebody in that building knows who is responsible for that player, good or bad. I promise you. I mean, you can name a player, and I could be like, coaches, front office. I talk about the Saints, our 7th round, the greatest 7th round debate I've ever seen, and we're doing a lot.
Sean Trell?
Yeah, no, with the Saints, when we had we were debating between Marcus Colston in the 7th round and Miles Austin from Monmouth College, and Colston's from Hofstra. So it's like Monmouth and Hofstra were the Saints coaches. I'll give them credit. They love Colston. The scouts were more Miles Austin. Hey, good for the Saints. All worked out for us.
How involved would Drew Brees be
No,
in these discussions?
unless Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton were talking to him behind the scenes, never in my involvement. He was never involved.
Which I think says a lot, which is how it should be, right?
Yeah, it
You
should
get
be.
the sense that
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers
Oh,
over the
that
last 5, 6 years has increasingly needed to have a say to the point of
it's like
wanting to take an
is he
ownership. Like Caleb
wait,
Williams,
is he playing this week?
man.
Did I miss something? Is he
You
playing?
know what's funny? It's like wherever you stand on the stuff he's saying on McAfee, I don't even want to bring it up, but like, so he's got this contract with McAfee, so he's going to be on there every week, and it's got to be interesting and a conversation starter. It's got to be something that ESPN and SI and name your Main Street outlet is just going to pick up and throw on their Instagram. So I think Aaron's smart like that. He's like, oh, I'm not playing football. So I need to just start talking about vaccines and Travis Kelce and Pfizer and all this. Like he just kind of knows I got to talk about this stuff to stay in the news. I got to be relevant. I'm Aaron Rodgers. I can't just go on there and talk about our defense. That's not enough. Nobody wants to hear me break down the scheme. So he's achieving the mission, I suppose. And of course, we hear all the reports. It's a miraculous recovery, Jim. I don't know if you heard that, but
Oh no, that's what I'm talking about.
that's another headline.
I think he's playing.
Do you really?
I
Do you
can't
think we'll see him?
I hope not. I can't take it right now. You know, I would. You know, I'll say though, we haven't done a pod in a couple of weeks, but I know I had talked about that. I didn't know how the Jets could keep putting Zach Wilson out there. Got to give him credit because they're still doing it, and I'm going to tell you, it still holds your breath every freaking play. And he's still not making it look easy, but you got to give him credit for fighting. The team's fighting. The Jets, the defense we've talked about forever. That's real. They were calculated and going after Rodgers. They were calculated in that, like, they would have been making a move. I was skeptical, but what I'm seeing, that receiver is better than I even knew. Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
He is special. And if you could give give Rodgers a running game with that talented backs they have, they're 13th right now in the NFL in rushing.
Jim, I got to admit, I feel the same way. Honestly, I really thought that the Jets, even with Aaron Rodgers, would be a 6 or 7 win team.
Yeah, I thought it was
that defense is way better than I thought.
Way better. That D line, they did what we just talked about. The defensive line. That's where it's at. It's all out there. They are dominant, nasty.
Bryce Huff. Yeah. They didn't have Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. They just beat the Philadelphia Eagles.
Get healthy.
Embarrassed them, as Robert Saleh said.
Oh, hey. Those quarterbacks, he could back it up with numbers.
Totally. So let's just finish up here on the Bills then. Like, where does their season go from here?
Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen?
Tyler, I think it's get as healthy as you can. Still go. Everything's on course. It's a fight. This is the fight right now. Keep improving. Where can we get better? Like we talked about. And then who are the teams that are really the threats? Baltimore, obviously KC. Baltimore comes to mind right now because of that offense can run the ball. I mean, obviously with Lamar. I mean, I think that would give the Bills nightmare problems. But I think for the Bills, right on course. Just keep improving and be as healthy as you can. They're going to be working in a lot of new guys. You're going to see it right now, like with these injuries. So it's a chance for a lot of guys to step up, guys we may not have thought about.
Right. I think that it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for your offensive line to become something that really hasn't been the last 7 years with Sean McDermott. And that's a nasty, tenacious, playing downhill crew where maybe you've had the players all along. You sure as hell had it in Wyatt Teller. And maybe you do have guys on your line from Deion Dawkins on the left side to Spencer Brown on the right who, when they're moving downhill, they can get after it. They can punch teams in the mouth. They can run the ball. And it's good to have that in your back pocket come January because they sure as hell would have loved to have had it against the Cincinnati Bengals last year, every year, right? And I mean, if you've got that, you might be able to dictate the terms when you want and go to the run when you want and always know that you've got, like you said, I'm not worried about Josh Allen. I'm not worried about Stephon Diggs. That's arguably the best connection in football. So that's always going to be there. but there's no need to use it and abuse it in the middle of October when you can try to figure something out. So it's an opportunity to find their way out of the woods, Jim.
Hey, Tyler, you could do what the great Bill Belichick did and just run the ball every play for for a whole game, just to get a little work, on your running game.
Oh man, such
Did that
an
really
embarrassing
happen?
night that was.
Did that really happen? It did happen because I bet on the Bills that night. I remember
It did. Yeah, that was an immediate pod situation.
it. That's right. Because of the wind rainstorm.
Wind game. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Good to be back. We will have more for you at Go Long, columns, profiles, deep dives on teams, and of course, all the podcasts. This one right here, the Go Long Show, with, if you're hearing for the first time or you're not quite sure who Jim is, we should always be reintroducing you. Jim, a scout with the Philadelphia Eagles, scout with the New Orleans Saints, director of personnel for the Buffalo Bills, and now the co-host of the Go Long Show and director of football ops at the XFL.
Appreciate it, Tyler.
One hell of a dad.
Hey, humbled to be a part of your vision for Go Long. And I know it's an anniversary for the book, and it's just good. Hey, it's good to be a part of this. I've been along the ride. Happy to contribute. You can add Uber Lyft into my introduction
Uber
too.
Lyft.
That's
and he's not even going to rip one before he picks you up in your Lyft.
Right? That is just.
Hey, also, you're in Blood and Guts. You mentioned the book. Jim Onis makes an appearance in the Jimmy Graham chapter. So another reason to buy the Blood and Guts wherever books are sold on the 1-year anniversary.
I owe you dinner for that one, Tyler. I owe you dinner.
Oh, I'm not going to turn it down. Also, we've got our QB contest with Matt.
I don't want to talk about that one.
So.
I'm scared to look. I may look into that tomorrow to see where I stand. I don't think it's good.
I haven't either. I think Matt's running away at this
point. I think so.
Yeah.
That's because he's in hockey now. He's not tied into this garbage.
That's right. He's consumed with the Sabres. Thanks so much, everyone.